What can I say, guys? This might just be one of the most disturbing cases I have ever covered. That being said, we're going to be going over some pretty explicit stuff here, so viewer discretion is advised, and without further ado, let's get into it. Now, the case that we're of course going to be talking about is the Hello Kitty murder case, which happened in Hong Kong back in 1999, and the unfortunate victim in this case is Fan Man Yi. Now, before suffering this extremely grisly fate and being stuffed into a doll after portions of her were removed, she had a very horrible upbringing. From an extremely young age, her family ended up abandoning her, which forced her to live in a girls' home. After quite some time as a teenager, she developed some addictive habits, if you guys catch my drift, using certain substances, and eventually, in order to fuel these addictions, she decided that she was going to start selling herself on the street. Somehow, though, she made it through this very tumultuous part of her life, and while still having addictions, eventually landed herself a job at the age of 23, working as a hostess at a nightclub where she met a variety of different clients. In 1997, while working at the nightclub and conversing with people, she would meet one client that would be probably the worst person she would ever meet. This is because it would be the person to end her life. This would be 34-year-old Chan Man Lok. After talking to Chan for quite some time, Fan realized that their careers kind of lined up. She would be selling her body, obviously, to earn income so that she could purchase more things to fuel her addictive habits, and Chan actually was the type of person who would organize women that would do that, send them out, and collect portions of their paycheck. This word starts with a P, but I'm pretty sure I can't say it for YouTube guideline purposes. They would end up striking a deal, though, where Fan would work under Chan, he would get her business, and this was working for quite some time, but eventually Fan decided that she needed some more money and fast, so she stole Chan's wallet. In his wallet wasn't too much money, maybe the equivalent of around $500 US, but still, stealing from someone like this is bad news. Chan, once he found out that Fan had stolen his wallet and money, immediately demanded that she give him the money back, which she did. On top of this, though, he charged an additional fee, which she did not have access to directly. And it really didn't take Chan long to enlist the help of two of his henchmen who would forcefully take Fan and bring her back to Chan's flat, where they would force her to stay and sell her so they could gain their money back. Things in the flat, though, would quickly spiral out of control because eventually they started losing patience with Fan because they weren't bringing back enough money, and they started doing some pretty horrific things to her over the duration of the next month. Now, I'm not going to be able to describe in great detail exactly what happened in the flat here, but you guys will be able to get the gist. First and foremost, they would take electrical cords, tie them around her to make her immobile, and strike her multiple times. Additionally, they would not allow her any food or water hardly at all, and definitely no bathroom breaks. This still, though, wasn't even the worst part, because they would force her to consume human waste, and they would use her against her will for their own purposes, if you get what I'm saying. Perhaps one of the most horrifying parts about this, though, is that Chan had a 14-year-old girlfriend. Now, it's not clear as to whether or not they actually had a relationship like that, or if she was just working under him, but besides this, he would have this 14-year-old over and she would help out with Fan and witness all of these horrible things. But eventually, this 14-year-old would be the person to get Chan and his henchmen caught, as you'll see later. After an entire grueling month, Fan's body just couldn't stand this anymore, and she eventually gave up the ghost overnight. When the henchmen woke up and discovered this, they of course started panicking, but quickly moved her into a bathtub where they started removing portions of her. With these portions they removed from Fan, they would place this onto the stove in boiling water as to prevent it from decomposing and smelling really badly. This tactic worked for most of Fan, however, they decided to keep this portion of her body, and with this, we would get the whole entire name of this case, the Hello Kitty murder case. This is because instead of just disposing of it and throwing it into the trash like they were doing with her other portions, they were going to open up a Hello Kitty plush and place this portion of her body inside of it and close it back up, and this is exactly what they did. Now, this entire group probably would have gotten away with it if it weren't for the 14-year-old who had some major issues with this. Eventually, she ended up going to the Hong Kong police, complaining about nightmares from a woman that was bound in electrical cords, and at first, the police dismissed this and just thought this was child's play, they're just imagining things, but eventually, their interest was piqued. Once she explained that this woman that was haunting her was actually someone she had had a hand in helping take the life of, the police followed her back to the flat where she claimed all this happened, and then discovered the horrifying evidence. And they were very quick to verify that these claims were 100% real, because when they went into the apartment, they opened up the Hello Kitty doll and discovered Fan's remains, or at least a portion of it. In court, the 14-year-old would testify against Chan and both of the henchmen, stating that they had done all of these different things, describing it in great detail, but Chan and his henchmen would claim that Fan actually lost her life due to overdosing on some of her addictive habits. And due to the fact that Chan and his henchmen had destroyed pretty much all of the evidence in terms of body, they weren't going to be able to determine the COD, or cause of death. This meant they weren't going to be able to be charged for murder, but instead manslaughter, which would give them a smaller sentence. Ultimately, when it came time for sentencing, the judge sentenced them to life in prison with the possibility of parole in 20 years. Now, this might seem like a pretty hefty sentence, but in my opinion, for this crime, it really doesn't fit. I think it should be a much larger sentence without the possibility of parole. In the aftermath, Chan and one of his henchmen are still serving their life sentences in a location known as Stanley Prison. One of the henchmen, however, did get luckier, and in March of 2004 was able to appeal and get his life sentence reduced to an 18-year sentence. Then, in 2014, he was released, but 8 years later got placed back in prison for doing things with a 10-year-old girl. This does make sense as well, because all three men, after being interviewed and observed, were deemed as remorseless in having an involvement in Fan's demise. And another thing that just adds a horrible layer on top of this is that Fan did have a son 5 months prior to this incident, who I believe is still alive today. There's not a whole lot of information about that. In any event, in 2004, her last portion of her that was remaining, obviously the portion that was put inside of the doll, was cremated, and a necklace that belonged to Fan was passed over to her son as well after it was found in the refrigerator. And if any of you guys are into the whole crime case tourism scene, you will not be able to visit this apartment complex because it has since been demolished and replaced by another building. But hey, I'm not the judge, so I can't really make that choice, but you guys have to let me know what you think about this sentencing and the case down in the comments below. As always, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like and subscribe. Also drop a comment down below letting me know what case you want to see next. And as always, I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Well guys, if the internet has taught us anything, there are a million horrible ways to die, but what we're going to talk about in this video might just be one of the worst. What we're of course talking about are pressure differentials, also known as delta P, and this can be deadly just by itself. Take for example this video of a crab walking next to the pipe. It's there one moment and gone the next. But unfortunate sea life are not the only beings that have passed away due to delta P. There are also a whole host of people that have died the exact same way, and we're going to be talking about probably the most gruesome example of delta P, the Byford dolphin incident. This incident